What's behind me here is not the works of a design firm or even one qualified architect. It was the vision of one Rowena Cade and her gardener, Billy Rawlings. They had no plans, no concepts, no site analysis. It's just the vision of creating something extraordinary, and that's exactly what they did. We are here at the heart of Cornwall, nearby the gorgeous Penzance, in a nice village called Porthcurno, where this theatre destroys everything we know about an architectural project. This place shows that it's not about having a set metaphoric concept at the start, but more so having an ambition. And the ambition in this case created one of the most spectacular performance venues in the entire world. This is the story of the Minack Theatre, a story of ambition, of community, and a hard-working woman that decided that her house's back garden is too small for her dreams.
And where between us we moved enough earth to make a little bit of heaven.
What you're looking at here should not make sense. There's no practical reason for someone to look at this steep granite gully in Cornwall and say that, yeah, Shakespeare would do well if it was performed here. I mean, the place was originally called Minack, which in Cornish English means a rocky place. But in 1932, everything what I just said is exactly what has happened. Rowena Cade was already landscaping the size of her home, and she was already carving little cliffs at the edge of her garden. So when a local drama group asked her to perform The Tempest, she didn't just build a theatre, she just started by offering her land. But that was the spark that made her realize, maybe I should. So what followed was winter, where she carried multiple bags of sand from where she lived up until here in the treacherous paths and in the very cold winter of Cornwall. And all of this was made possible by the help of her gardener, Billy Rawlings, who, by the way, is performing right now, so let's go catch him.
So welcome to the Minack Theatre. My name is Mark Harrington, and today is one of the days when I tell the history of the theatre in the character of Billy Rawlings, the gardener who helped build it. All this here, right, it were a slope, sliding away to a 70-foot drop in the Zarn down below. That's where the sea do come in. And the path, this path here, it were a little zigzag path. One of the paths, do you know they paths? So narrow. You do scratch your legs on the blackthorn as you go along. Do you know paths like that? It was like that.
So together, her and her gardener, Billy Rawlings, they improvised these steps. They cut them off ground, they leveled them, and they made them what you see right now. But every time, they built just enough for just one performance. So the first ever performance was actually lit up by car headlights back in the day.
They were car headlights running off batteries. But also, after that, I think that I'm not sure whether they ran some sort of generator down here at one point. But I think it was car lights with batteries. And obviously it wasn't very good, because during the first performance, some of the audience used their torches to light up the areas that the actors disappeared into the darkness, and so they'd shine their torches onto them.
And the audience at that time just sat on crude terraces where parents actually focused more on their kids' safety than actually watching the play. But the assumption at that time was all of this was supposed to be temporary.
All the mothers all sat there with their broad sun hats on, they're watching the play, right? Do you think they're listening to the play? No, they're just watching their own children walking backwards towards the edge, and a sheer drop, 70 foot down the Zarn, but they're not listening at all, I don't think.
It's supposed to just be adequate for just one performance or two performances max, for just 1 week's worth of work. But this theatre behind me never actually went away. And that is proof that architecture is not always a masterminded project from the start to finish, but it could be an evolution of things that build on top of each other day after day. And this is the perfect personification of that, where all of this just started to evolve day by day and it became bigger and bigger. Was there any kind of vision for how it's going to look, or did it never finish as a project?
No, it never.
So she never actually had a final kind of stop touching it now.
No, it never finished. So where we're sitting here now, this seat of Billy's was going to be put on the other side of the theatre. That's what she said to him in a letter to him. But she didn't, she put it here. And I think the reason for that is that presumably the first row of seats had been made. So everything after this seat was made after Billy had died. So he was 78 when he died, and she was 73 then. Then she started doing this side of the theatre when she was in her 70s. In her 80s, she did the balconies to the side, and the last thing she built was the Juliet balcony on the stage there. So she just kept going and kept going as much as she could.
In architecture, we always just receive the site. We receive the brief, we receive the client, and we do things for it, and we cast architecture into it. But in this case, it's actually the opposite. The Minack Theatre actually really works with the architecture of the site and with the geology of the nature. In a way, it emerges from the existing and it doesn't impose itself on it. And if you look closely, you will see this in very high detail because there's very few elements that feel placed. Everything feels natural. These steps feel discovered rather than constructed. And these seats feel like they are carved in the cliff. And that made the theatre read less like a building and more like a geological formation. We have kind of a set way of doing things, right? So you start with a concept, you do the site analysis, you do the plans, you get an architecture, you do it.
Yeah, exactly the opposite then.
This was not that, is it?
No,
So
exactly the
was there
opposite.
any plans at all?
No. I think the whole thing is driven by the natural landscape.
Right.
So what is the easiest, what suggests a place to put something? So for example, the balconies up here, they're on, that one up there is almost on a little kind of what could be a rock ledge. And so everything is decided by that, or what's easiest to do. So for example, the shape of the theatre is really driven by gravity.
Yeah.
You can pull earth and stone down, but it's difficult to build it up. So it's what is possible in the landscape and what does the landscape suggest to you.
And what's mind-blowing about all of this is that she was not an architect and she didn't even study art. And even the concrete that they worked on in this site didn't feel like it was just imposed on it. It felt like it was sat on top of the existing nature and negotiated with the existing. And that's what makes it really special. And this stage behind me does not try to frame the scenery, which is what we use to say something fancy in architecture. It actually is the scenery, and it really gives importance to the sea behind it. And the horizon is the set design, and the ocean is like an unwanted collaborator in this project. This is land art before it was fashionable. This is site-responsive design before that term even existed. Matter of fact, it's decades before that term existed. So this theatre is 40 years of iterative design made by someone who just would not leave it alone. This is what we tell our students, that design is never actually finished. It's persistence, is returning to the design problem again and again and again. And if you see yourself returning to this channel again and again and again, then subscribe, because driving in these little country roads was a nightmare.
OA likes plays. Put up your hand if you like plays.
So what once began as one woman's dream became a functioning theatre today that hosts over 200 performances per year. Lighting rigs were placed carefully where these rocks once dictated pure darkness, and these sound systems are threaded carefully in these terraces that never were meant to thread cables in. The facilities like the cafe and the exhibition now host thousands of visitors every single year and keeping them safe in a place that was never that to begin with. And yet somehow still feels like it's Rowena's baby. And this is the very delicate negotiation that this theatre has with its surroundings. The challenge was, how do you modernize a place that was never meant to be modern? How do you introduce new technologies to keep the place alive and relevant in a place that was never meant to be that? And how do you introduce infrastructure without erasing the character of a place that has decades of handmade work built into it? The answer in this case was a slow insertion and a respectful adaptation, treating this theatre not as a relic, but as a living piece that must keep evolving to continue to survive. But this theatre is in continuous fight against nature, or let's call it negotiation against nature. The salt water erodes everything that you see here that is made of steel. And wind batters all of the rigs that we just talked about. And the cliff edges are always eroding with every wave that this Atlantic Ocean hits. It's almost like nature keeps wanting to reclaim what was once carved from it. And add to that the new safety requirements, the regulations and expectations from people, and then suddenly you start to understand just how complex maintaining this place actually is.
There are challenges to maintain it. First of all, the fabric was never designed to last. You know, each part of this was almost built for a play. And so particularly on this slope that we're on now, it's a very thin skim over granite, and you can actually see some bits of the granite poking out through the skim. And so that will need maintaining. And the trouble is that this is almost an artwork as well.
Yeah.
And how to do that without destroying it too much is a problem.
Yeah.
There's that, and also the reason I say people is that people are less prepared to sit on a stormy, rainy night on the side of a cliff, perhaps, than they used to be. And also, health and safety is now a real issue. So when I first performed here in 1984, there weren't railings in the same way as there are now. You know, there's a rope to get down, and you came onto that side of the stage over a very soggy bit of ground, which became like a pond with a 6-inch plank over it. But even that was nothing compared to when you see the original backstage and the original paths. They were much wilder and much steeper than people would accept nowadays. So that's the problem, that the modern sensibilities then starts to work against nature, and I think that's the dichotomy here.
Every repair is a conversation between the past and the present, and they actually mark when they repaired things. And every handrail is a negotiation between the character of the place and what is now needed for safety. And every restoration starts with the exact same question. How do we keep this place alive? How do we keep Rowena's vision alive while maintaining the relevance of this place?
I'll see you in the morning.
Standing here, it becomes very clear that this Minack Theatre breaks every rule that we teach about architectural processes. There's no client brief, there's no funding strategy, there's no design brief. Matter of fact, Rowena Cade herself did not have enough money to sustain the project, so she barely paid Billy. But what was there was belief, and this belief then turned into one of the most spectacular places in the entire world. And this theatre shows exactly that. The design ambition does not follow a process, but it shows ambition one brick at a time.
That's all I have to say about that. I'm going now, and I'm not coming.